And also I know Councilmember Bento is watching but not participating because she feels pretty sick. This is the Committee of the Whole, Wednesday, May 18th. When I bring this meeting to order, I also want to acknowledge that we're having these in-person meetings in the midst of various, COVID outbreaks. And I just want to acknowledge that for those that want to or feel they would like to, for any reason, wear a mask, that is entirely encouraged and allowed. And in fact, if you know you've been exposed to somebody who's been positive, it is under CDC an obligation. So I know a number of people were exposed yesterday. This is why you're finding some staff members wearing masks. And I just want to acknowledge that at the beginning and just know that we would leave it up to each individual to kind of monitor yourself. But if you have any qualms or issues, please know that masks are encouraged if you feel uncomfortable and maybe exposed to people you might have at home in addition to yourself. The other is that we obviously are set up a little differently. So we're going to be doing some small groups. We're going to go back and forth. We're going to keep this pretty quick paced. We have some regular business item to handle first, but I want to also be true to a commitment that will be done by 6 o'clock. And so I'm going to try to manage this to a pace, but if we feel like there's even more time that we would like, we will pick this up at a future meeting. I kind of want to honor that everybody sets these schedules, and I think I want you to know in me that I'm really kind of sticking to that 6 o'clock.
Channel your inner Harry Melander.
Is that Harry? I always like Harry, and now here's another reason.
Harry did not dawdle in meetings.
All right, we're getting to business here. So with that, our first order of business is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion, a second, to approve the agenda? Thank you. And by the way, happy birthday, council member. The agenda includes wishing you a happy birthday, and you've moved that. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Wendy. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. On to the, I believe we have the minutes from May 4th Committee of the Whole meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Lilligren moves approval.
Thank you, Councilmember Lilligren. Is there a second?
Second by Gonzalez.
Thank you, Francisco. Any discussion, corrections for the minutes? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. We have some non-consent business items today. Pursuant to the bylaws, the council may and is considering a time-critical business item at this Committee of the Whole meeting, and because it requires some timely action from the council's governing board. So, having said that, this is a business item that includes a report from the Environment Committee, business item 2022-135, Bassett Creek Tunnel MnDOT Agreement Amendment. And I believe Council Member Lindstrom.
He's not here, so Wolf is standing.
Council Member Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the council. Business item 2022-135 requests an amendment to the Bassett Creek Tunnel MnDOT agreement. We already said we can do exigent business, so I'm going to skip that bullet point.
Skip that.
MnDOT will be removing an out-of-service section of the Bassett Creek Tunnel that crosses Highway 55 at Van White Boulevard. Interceptor 1 MN 320 needs rehabilitation and lies under a portion of the Bassett Creek Tunnel within the construction area of the project. Business item 2022-83 SW was approved by the council on March 23, 2022 for an estimated amount of $680,000 in anticipation that the amount would be updated once MnDOT, that was a weird noise, selected their design build contractor. MnDOT negotiated a contract price of $906,210.96 with Minger Construction Companies Incorporated and was higher than the initial estimate. Therefore, Mr. Chair and members of the council, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to execute the contract amendment for Master Utility Agreement 22I011 with the Minnesota Department of Transportation for a total contract value of $906,210.96.
Thank you, Councilmember Wolf. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Bridget's so happy we're not calling rolls anymore.
Everybody's happy with
Everybody's
that.
Great, so we're on to our information item and conversation about values, vision, and goals, which is exciting. And we're going to be led by Michael Larson and Angela Torres. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you,
Take it away.
Mr. Chair, council members. It's really good to see you in person again. I am wearing a mask for recent exposure reasons, but I will try to project, so hopefully you can understand me today. Again, I'm Michael Larson, Planning Analyst in the Community Development Division of the Met Council. My understanding is that you had a successful retreat last week, and I'm hoping that what we have planned for you today helps you continue a conversation about the future of the region in a spirit of collaboration and camaraderie. Greg, if you could bring up the presentation, that would be great. Okay, here we go. So our goals for you today are to give you an opportunity to begin to work together as a group to begin to articulate what is foundational language for the 2050 Regional Development Guide. That includes discussing shared values, exploring concepts for what might be visionary language for the region, and to share ideas and feedback for staff to follow up on. While today's exercise is somewhat free form, these ideas will take shape over time, and we will support the conversations that you have over the course of the year, and we will propose as the language unfolds over time, and we will propose structures that may reflect the values and vision of this council and take shape for and support the planning and policy work to follow. In addition, you should expect to hear about data and research that supports some of the ideas and concepts and issues that we articulate, so that will be part of supporting that conversation. So we have 5 themes for you to discuss today in small groups. They are equitable, affordable, and welcoming. Theme 2, high quality and resilient environment. Theme 3, vibrant places and destinations. Theme 4, accessible and interconnected. And Theme 5, prosperous and healthy. These again, these are meant to stimulate discussion, and again, this is not a proposed structure at this point. I imagine that some of the specific issues that are important to you may be implied here, and you'll be discussing them in your small groups, and I'll look forward to hearing some of those themes. So the structure that we're going to have for you today is the following. We'll have you choose one of the groups, and you're certainly welcome to sit where you are today. We're hoping that there are groups of no more than 4. I encourage you perhaps to gather with some folks that maybe you haven't spoken with recently. And we will ask one of you to choose one of you to perform a reporting out role for the duration of the meeting. And we'll have staff people at each table taking notes to facilitate, to document things that are said today. So for those at home watching the stream, we may be muting the audio because it will obviously be very difficult to hear. Although we will be reporting out from these conversations, and we will be documenting some of these things, so that information will be available for you to review. So today we have several staff from CD, Angela Torres, Raya Smiley, and Caitlin Shampoo, helping with note-taking today, so I appreciate that. So what we're going to do is, for each of the themes, each of the groups will discuss for 10 minutes the first theme, discuss what values are associated with the particular theme or topic, and what statements would you articulate for the vision of any particular visionary kind of language that you might have for that. And after 10 minutes, we'll have group one, so that would be over there in the corner, take the lead on reporting out on what your discussion was, and then we'll have the other groups report out and anything that they would like to add to that conversation. So take us several minutes to add to that conversation. And then we'll reconvene to discuss the second theme and have the second group two take the lead on reporting on that, and then the other groups participating. So does anybody have any questions? I mean, we have 5 themes, so we'll circle back to this theme group 1, so you have an extra charge tonight. Anybody have any questions about that process? One thing I will note is if this is meant to be somewhat, again, free form and rapid fire, it's a short amount of time. If we, our thought is that we would take a quick snapshot of what your thoughts were. However, if we do find that, we do want to close by 6, so if we do find that you're finding the conversation valuable and tends to linger, we may just end and reconvene at a future meeting to discuss the remaining topics and certainly evaluate how the conversation went today. So I have on each of you welcome to take notes. Actually, I would ask that you take notes on the paper that I've provided. There's a page for each of the themes. And again, ask you to select someone principally to report on. Okay. So I would like to share with you some of the ideas that we've heard from various groups that we've met with recently. And those include, we've sent out similar surveys to different groups, including we had a really good conversation with the Equity Advisory Committee. We plan to meet with LUAC tomorrow. The Land Use Advisory Committee, we convened a regional planning advisory group where we've had similar discussion and surveys. So in other groups, and I'll just share some of the thoughts that we're seeing from these surveys. So I put on the screen, this isn't scientific reporting out, but these are some of the things, some of the words that stood out for me: safety, respect, inclusion, creativity, innovation, compassion, and collaboration. And I would remark that, given the challenges that we're facing, as a society now, it's nice to see words like trust and respect and love come from engagement with our own Equity Advisory Committee. Those are some of the words I heard specifically from them. Yeah. Hopefully you notice I did compile from different sources a list of words that describe values. So that was intended to maybe inspire you or spark some conversation. So here's some of the other things that we've heard about regional vision. And we've defined regional vision as a description of an idealized future. I often describe it as an all-hands-on-deck kind of approach to our problems and opportunities. Here's some of the examples of things that have been reported in our survey or suggestions. All feel welcome and appreciated. We're a national leader in sustainability. We acknowledge our Native and African American history. Outcomes are not defined by race or other characteristics. There are opportunities to live affordably in neighborhoods of one's choosing, strong neighborhoods and community identities in a region with creativity and art. So this is information, ideas, and input that we're collecting, and I think over time we'll begin to sort these into themes. One of the things too, we're looking for language that inspires and provides clarity for the planning process. So again, the third area of goals, this is really not something that we're focusing on today, but was included on your survey. Some of the examples of higher level goals are more BIPOC people as homeowners, business owners, participating in upper management and corporations, etc. elimination of racial disparities, close housing shortages and gaps, elimination of homelessness, achieving carbon neutrality, and specifically a flourishing East Metro, which I think is a theme we often hear about the vitality in the East Metro. So that this begins the breakout portion of the meeting. So I will does anyone have any questions or suggestions or
Yeah,
before
Go
we
ahead.
start?
yeah, thanks, Michael. So you said use these, are you gonna collect them?
Yeah.
We'll just have influence and I'll meet my handwriting.
That's fine, we'll do our best.
Thank you, and
Yes.
then we're not trying to reach a table consensus, right? Well, there'll be some of that, but you want each of our individual thinking on these pages. Right?
Yeah, I welcome you to each add your thoughts and notes, but to work as a group together to and identify a spokesperson to share some concrete ideas that the group has discussed. Yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna set, Janae, if there are no other questions, I'm gonna set a timer. And yesterday at Basset, we used a great horn owl sound, but I don't have that. It's probably gonna be obnoxious. But yeah, I say, go for it, and you'll hear when 10 minutes is up, and then I'll call on you. All right, go for it.
She started tonight.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you got it. This is a little bit of a test run, an experiment for engaging you, so if at any point you have any ideas now or afterward about how it's going, whether there's enough time or if I'm cutting you off or whatever, but I thought, we'd give this kind of a try. So like I said before.
There's gonna be grades given, so.
Yeah.
Just say that.
Yeah. So, we want to provide spaces for you to be able to talk to one another and to brainstorm and to wrestle with things and to respond to work that we've done. So anyway, so we're giving this a shot. So like I said before, theme one, the responsibility for taking the lead on discussion is group one. So I'd like to hear from you to reflect on what you have to say about the values and vision associated with this thing.
Okay.
And Director Braha is going to take notes, and I'll just stand here and try to be helpful.
Okay, first of all, thanks for having this process so well outlined with our values list and the themes and providing our opportunity for individual input ahead of time.
You're welcome.
So for our theme of equitable, affordable, and welcoming, and what values are associated with this topic, we looked at the values list and we also thought about how we wanted to respond, council member and I, and we said that we benefit by valuing others, and that ties in with the value of respect. So sometimes we think about, okay, I want to just focus in on my needs, but focusing in on other people's needs provides benefit to us as well. And if we ignore other people's needs, that could have unintended consequences for ourselves and our communities. Deciding on where to focus, there was a value of focus. We cannot at one time address all of these values, so that requires us to have that value of focus. And that same applies to equity. In order to achieve equity, and that not being the same thing as equality, means that we have to focus on where there are, for example, areas of disparity or unintended consequences at times. Prosperity is a value, and we thought that prosperity should be addressed at all income levels. And it should be looked at in terms of place and space, socioeconomic levels, not just one, or the lowest socioeconomic level, cultural. So all those areas should be addressed when looking at prosperity. Valuing the time and efforts and impacts with measurements, and then reevaluating our measures for success or of success and its impact ties to the values of respect and results, accountability, and productivity. Sometimes our value of time is not reflected in terms of the accountability and the productivity. If we have engagement, we value that engagement by making sure that we produce measurable and impactful results.
Thank you, Councilmember. Now, do any of the other groups have something they would like to add, something alternative, or that kind of was missing, that you thought maybe might be missing from that overview, from their thoughts?
May? Thanks. The one thing that came up, John brought it up, and it really sparked a lot of discussion, and we were talking about it under values, and what was the idea of safe communities and safety? I don't even know if that quite fits as a value, but I just think that's such a priority. We got to kind of the statement of safety is not equally distributed in all communities in our region. And so to me that indicates we value some community safety greater than others. So I thought we just haven't had that perspective here before, and I thought it was really meaningful. Or at least I haven't quite that way.
Did anyone get a chance to craft a statement that might reflect a vision associated with this theme? I know there's a lot of just, kind of brainstorming. I've taken the time to kind of sort of generate what I thought might be visionary language, and it's just kind of been helpful for me. I'm not gonna propose any of that to you just yet, because, it's really about the process and identify ideas from you, but I did find it helpful to sort of craft a construction language that, oh, that's what I mean. That's really what, that gets at it, struggling with it a little bit. So now it's hard to put you on the spot in 10 minutes and come up with something really powerful, but, anyone else? We can move on. Yeah, go ahead.
So we were talking about safety also, and how you can't be welcoming if you don't feel safe. And then that people need stability and dependability and security so that you can work on long-term goals to be successful and to have everybody succeed.
Great. Okay. Notice by the way, you don't get any breaks.
Just,
Oh, sorry.
one of the
Thank
things
you.
that I think, as we talked about safety as well here, obviously, but it's almost like a sign of the times. Would we have the same discussion a year from now or 2 years from now? Right now, I think safety is the top of mind on a lot of
Sure, absolutely.
discussions, whether it's the transit or whether it's schools or whether, and so it comes up, but I don't know, 5 years ago was it top of the mind? And when we look at all of these themes, it's kind of almost like what's the urgency and how we track that urgency.
Right. That's certainly, that's an interesting comment, and as we work on a plan that has a horizon of the year 2050, we're sort of in an unprecedented, challenging time lately. One of the, I think we've talked to you too about this scenario planning that we're doing too. So it is a different kind of planning environment where we might be articulating things that feel urgent now, but hopefully not as urgent in the near future. So, you ready to go on to theme 2? Oh, sorry, that's Dan.
Prompted me to say.
I'm used to like the little yellow hand on the screen. So I'm like, where is it?
A thought that came up was to cherish the strength that comes from our diversity. I mean, instead of looking at diverse communities as a problem to be fixed, it's more an asset to be put to use or to cherish. So,
thank you for that. I've heard about asset-based approach to some of these issues, but the word cherish is something new to me. To use the word cherish, I like that. Anybody else got a yellow hand popping up? No? Okay. Group 2, you're on deck to take the lead on reporting. And we're on to high quality and resilient environment. And I will set the timer now. Go for it. All right.
Do you think this means the physical environment?
So, group two, please share your thoughts about this theme. Oh, and if our folks behind the scene could bring our thing back, that would be great. Just leave it, thank you. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so we had some values, and I don't think we really crafted a statement, but some of the values that we have was thinking of the environment in what I call the 3 Ps, which is preserve and protect permanently. So it's not just to address resiliency, which is just making sure that things don't get worse, but try to turn the page and restore what we have and make sure that we move forward with recuperating the environment as much as possible. So they need to address and restore. And Robert mentioned the phrase that the world and the state it's going to be hotter, wetter, and more crowded. So that's a reality that we'll have to address. But again, we don't have to just stop there with addressing the problems. We need to move beyond that and restore and repair what we have. Anything else?
Sounds good.
Okay.
The only thing difficult I had with this one is that are we, and I caught myself responding as a operator of a transit system or other systems that are different than I would respond as the environment in a bigger picture. You know, so if we're taking this language and this is how we're directing it, is it having electric buses fully implemented? Is it, you know, that's a different kind of environment response than I would just as John, the citizen.
Sure.
That's a very good point. And we play both roles, right? We have an interest in the natural environment for a variety of reasons at the council, both in our environmental services work and how we interact and how we improve the environment through treatment, our impacts in the environment through our through the services that we provide and how we interact and the impacts we have in neighborhoods as a transit provider, but also more broadly of you know, how the natural resources in our region are supporting the livability of the region as well. And in our parks, of course, our biggest natural resource found in the region. So all of the above. And we look to you for how you want to articulate that.
And we will help with that process of differentiating the language that represents values and vision broadly. And then, you know, one of the things that the principles I've talked about is sort of, you know, progressive elaboration from vision statements into more detail, such as our roles and authority, and perhaps the convening role and influence that we might have in that regard as well. So
some of the values that we was stewardship, sustainability, equity, those were the answers of the values question.
Yeah.
And the statement I wrote down was the status quo is not sustainable. Very true.
You know, one thing I heard at MOSEC yesterday is a feeling that the values around water are fairly well articulated, and what work we've been doing and changing our practices over the decades is where we want to continue to go, and that our outcomes would be, you know, and obviously high-level outcomes is making improvements in those realms. So, you know, just add that to the sorts of input that we're receiving.
Councilmember Lilligren, could you say your last statement again? Establish what's.
The status quo is not sustainable.
Yes. Cool. Thank you.
We talked about some of the same things, but we also talked about creativity and innovation and learning from our mistakes, you know? I mean, putting Bassett Creek in a tunnel,
Right.
or filling in the swamp in by Lake Nokomis area are examples of things that we used to do and we went, oh yeah, that doesn't work so good. We got to do better, and we have done better. But you got to fix those places where those things were done.
We talked too about being forward-thinking and flexible because we have to be able to pivot and learn and change and not be bound as the world changes. We need to change as well.
Bend, not break.
Yes.
Bend, yeah.
Bend, not break. Good one.
Thoughts from other groups?
We talked a little bit about innovation and cooperation. Innovation is we need to innovate. We're, like Robert was saying, is that our status quo, we can't stay where we're at. So innovation is really an important value as well as stewardship.
Yeah, well, I had another thing I heard from, from the MOSAC meeting yesterday is it felt like people were talking about innovation and technology in service of understanding how we can live better with the environment, which we haven't always done.
But technology is one part of it, but we can also go back to doing some things that we used to do that make sense, right?
Old technologies do that.
Right,
Yeah.
empowering people to be able to garden, and plant trees,
Yep.
and grow food where they live, so we're not transporting food from long distances. Like Phil was saying, you kind of look, you think, to be global, think globally, you need to think locally. Why are we doing all this transporting when we could be innovating and doing things right in our little local area that would eliminate the carbon along that way. What I'm saying is we can go back to what we used to do.
Sure. More sustainable living.
Yeah.
Yeah. Councilmember Pacheco, you want to answer?
We just kind of briefly just talked about also how it impacts young people. I mean, we have a decline in the kids going camping and going fishing, less fishing license. Some kids can't swim anymore. That it was all something that we grew up with and just automatically thought would be there. And I don't know what we're doing to build the next generation of stewards, environmental stewards. I don't see it as a curriculum, and there's that funny thing, not funny actually, but the pandemic really had people buying boats and doing all this stuff to get back out there. But prior to that, there was such a decline on young people just doing these kind of things that we all grew up kind of doing.
Thank goodness for our regional parks during the pandemic. I forget what the data was on that, but I think pretty.
Remarkable amount
Yeah.
of I'm sure you've experienced.
Yeah. Any other thoughts before we take the next round? All right, I'll set my timer.
This is to shift the trees.
You.
I didn't know.
Are you having fun?
You would be recording now.
Yeah. So if I could have your attention back here. Thank you. This theme is vibrant places and destinations, and group 3 is taking the lead on sharing their thoughts. And one thing I'm really interested in, hopefully, in your reporting out and those of others, is what places in the region you think exemplify places that are vibrant in regional assets too. So love to hear about that if you could. So take it away.
Well, the group of, namely Phil, named me the spokesperson, so, anyway, all right, we're good. So a lot of the words that came out for values that were important around this, there's a lot of different things. Safety, security, respect, affordability. Those are all part of being welcoming when it comes to different modes of transportation or the parks or sporting events, museums, those places we're going to, destinations, and vibrant places. Equitability and accountability, innovative. The word innovative in this group comes up all the time, how we can be innovative. With access and integrity. One line that Phil threw out that I wrote down was, we can't build buildings, they need to be accessible. We build things that needs to be accessible, right? And what he was talking about there was in regards to, we make these buildings that can do a lot of things, but they're not open to the public. They're not accessible, not just to people with different disabilities, but for anybody to use the facility. And that's part of not being welcoming. So we also talked about passion, boldness, chimes. We're talking about boldness and Parks Equity Grant, right? Just that we have that is boldness, and we need to think about reimagining, and we also talked about recognition, recognizing what we're doing right, and we don't tell our story well enough of what we're doing well. Terry's not here, I think she left. Anyway, we've got staff that's really good at that. If there's an individual statement or statements, I'm not sure that we came up with one of those, but we certainly have a lot of values.
Any favorite
places? To that.
Any favorite places that you think exemplify? Oh, sorry. Are there any favorite places of yours that exemplify vibrancy and a place you want to be?
I would say CHS Field up there,
CHS
street over
Field,
the Saints playing.
Sure.
We walk our garden there, walk through it.
For that question, we focused on like Eat Street. Where
sure.
you had the
Yeah, Eat
different
Street,
cultural foods and as a destination and the cultural corridors on Lake Street. How do you bring this, how do you really support the diversity there? As far as vibrancy? It's kind of overlooked that people just go to the Mall of America, and although it has value, but even those smaller opportunities here, people don't realize how diverse Minnesota really is.
Right. So can I ask I just want to comment about the fact that innovation comes up a lot in your group in particular, and I think that innovation is a regional strength in many different ways through our economy and our economic leaders. And I think you also would use the word passion, and I started to think a little bit about, do we take, to mind came like, do we take risks? Do we do something a little different to kind of try new things to address old problems and that kind of thing? And that sort of struck me as something I think this region does and maybe wants to do more of it. Anyone else? Yeah.
We talked about that vibrant places are places that people care about and want to keep nice.
Yeah.
I talked about community directed and sort of hyper-local kind of visions to build vibrant places. And the other example I brought, Robbinsdale is the sole suburban community that I represent. And they have really been innovative, and they've used their municipal tools to create a really kind of vibrant downtown. They've encouraged owner occupants of small businesses owning their buildings, and they've used their tools to realize that. And so that, you asked for examples, I think that's an example of a really successful innovation.
Yeah. Well, I think we see places like, you know, downtown Hopkins and the Hopkins Artery as those hyper-local, but often recognized regionally as regional assets, and the efforts of creativity and innovation that has gone into that. Lots of other places reinventing themselves to meet, you know, new needs. You know, anyone else? Yes.
Just, I mentioned this at the group in another meeting, in a meeting in which I was. The presenter said that you want your city or your community to stress what's unique to it and not be called not another Peoria. So
Not another what?
Peoria.
Oh, I hope no one from Peoria is.
I had no idea what Peoria was, but
Yeah.
somebody told me it's just like a basic Midwest city.
Oh, okay.
Poor Peoria.
Yeah. So you wanna stress what's unique, the diversity, the high tech, etc. So that's what helps to make your place, your city a destination.
Great, yes. Let's go, Shannon.
So our table wanted to point out that vibrant places and destinations are for the people.
Yeah.
It's about people.
And they're only vibrant if the people are there. So
Yes.
it's connecting and all of that.
Yeah, we're not just, building trains or, having buses on the roads.
What kind of places are-
People.
What kind of places strike you as being not for people?
Well, sometimes residents have said that.
No, I guess that's.
Some people
I
have
concur.
the image about Metropolitan Council that we're focusing on spending money on things,
Okay. Yeah.
trains, buses, and infrastructure, and not focusing on the people.
Like how those things benefit people.
Yes.
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 And what were you all laughing about so much?
Let's just say our notes have the words doom spiral in them, so you don't want to.
Yeah, we try to stay out of that, yeah. Yeah.
Public vision.
No, I think of something like when we're talking about the people part, if you take like a good example is the city of Burnsville, they tried to create a downtown for a long time, even though it was a suburb and didn't really have a downtown. And it wasn't until they built part of the city of the plaza that people started coming because, it was the people and if their people aren't there, there's no vibrance to it, right? But it's a great space and they built a great space that people wanted to go to.
And Michael, to your question about what spaces aren't for people,
Yeah.
and I would say, a large period of the architecture in downtown Minneapolis, right? It's fortress. It's really to keep people out.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an example of really building an unwelcoming community.
We were describing the same thing about, it's not just the shape or the size. There's something about spaces that are life enhancing. There's energy that's life enhancing, positive energy that is about people, as opposed to being next to a highway where it could be high energy and pretty life sucking.
No,
One thing I think, the whole vibrancy, when we look at it in relation to safety, when you have the people coming downtown for the football game or basketball or even come to St. Paul here for, it brings that critical mass. It lets them know that you can come out and you can do some things and there's other people around it. I don't care if you go into the orchestra or something, that vibrancy does have a tendency to draw people together and understand that, you can be safe. I can park my car, I can do these things that are being challenged today.
Right. Great. Anybody else? We're doing good on time, so I think we'll have some time at the end to continue the conversation. We've got 2 more to go. So, fourth, accessible and interconnected. So group 4, you're on deck for taking the lead. Off you go.
liberty.
Is it just gibberish? You are well articulated.
All right, hey everybody, 10 minutes again. Hope you enjoyed that topic. I don't have anything else to say before, take it away.
I was voluntold to be the.
Very good, very good.
Our values reliable, safe, equitable, barrier-free, affordable. It's foundational to productivity and prosperity, and it requires a lot of collaboration.
They just copied this.
And our statement was that we want people to have choices on where to live, work, and recreate, with choices on how to travel between those places.
I like it. Very, very efficient, productive. Thank you. Anyone else want to contribute to that?
I just think we thought it was so related to a lot of the other themes, but that it was kind of that word foundational, meaning you actually need this as the major tool to create equity and high quality resiliency and affordability.
Any other groups like to share? Any thoughts about what accessibility or interconnected might mean in terms of where we might be headed in the future?
Yes.
Yes.
One thought that came to me was that interconnectedness is not just the tools, the internet and the broadband is, or eliminating barriers, but also the ability to talk and the willingness to listen.
Oh.
Because you can have all the
Great.
tools in the world, but if you don't take the call, then there's no connection, right? So,
Sure.
being open-minded to having having barriers for people can talk and participate, but also being willing to listen and understand what the other party is saying.
Thank you. That's not actually something I thought about, more kind of the social interconnectedness throughout the region and among our different communities. And it's not just necessarily about infrastructure, but about those personal connections and connections between people. Yeah. Others? That was easy.
We're ready to go on theme 5.
Yeah, are you fading a little bit?
Yes.
Great, okay, so off you go. What's next time? We'll debrief after. Yeah, I'm fading a little bit too. Thank you for pushing through. So, love to hear your thoughts about what you envision a prosperous and healthy region might be, and what values are associated with that, and what you think where we might be headed. Again, group one, you got double duty, so off you go.
I'll stand up again, I'll be consistent. Then I'll sit down the whole time. So my council member colleague here came up with a really good equation based on our themes, and she said that if we achieve themes 1 through 4, if we do themes 1 through 4, we will achieve themes 3 and 5, which are vibrant places and destinations that lead to prosperous and healthy communities. So we like that.
It's the engineering couldn't help with not having a patient.
Yeah, and in terms of prosperous and healthy communities, we thought that there should be a broad definition of prosperity that allows the ability to focus on goals and aspirations that the community members want to achieve. That we can, you should be able to access and achieve what you aspire to without walls, so that your environment is accessible and welcoming, and that we and our community members have opportunities to get to that prosperity and healthy communities. That healthy communities require access to healthy activities and access to things like healthy facilities, healthy food, I just added that. And that in order to have a prosperous and healthy community, there are many components, including education, jobs, homes that are affordable and achievable, transportation. There's an interconnection between housing and jobs and transportation and education, which requires collaboration and partnership.
Right. Thank you. I think one of the things I keep emphasizing is that, there are so many interconnections among many things, and so these 5 themes that we came up that were intended to be, kind of containers for us to discuss, and one of the things we will be working with you on is what are those pairings that make the most sense, not only given our region's issues and opportunities, but how we translate it into our policy work. I want to know what the stamping was about.
Oh, just because I should have known everybody was going to say it, but I have that down in my statement as well, that communities define prosperity for themselves.
Yeah.
They define
And
their
this
own
is
what
what
they
a
mean.
lot of the young people do
Yeah.
for
Well, you said
planning.
that, right? I'm posing as a millennial or even what is it?
Different than that.
It's not that, it's actually kind of, it's like a way of applauding or.
That's great, that's great.
Yeah.
I know
I
too many
think,
millennials.
Legally, but.
Right.
well, and I appreciate that, like defining what prosperity means to different people and having people self-define. I know sometimes I recall that, I think it's Nepal that has, maybe a relatively low income status, but I think often comes in terms of ranking of happiness. So prosperity could be defined not necessarily just materially, but in terms of our, interconnectedness.
Yeah, and there was one thing that we wanted to tie into, and that was based on the first theme, equitable, affordable, and welcoming, that prosperity can be at all levels in terms of what you want to aspire to. It's not just the lowest income levels, but wherever you are. If you have a high school diploma and you want to aspire to have a college degree, that could be your definition of higher prosperity.
Right.
Socioeconomic prosperity, cultural prosperity, where maybe you aspire to have more culture in your spaces. So we wanted to emphasize that as well.
Very interesting. Thank you. How about others? Yeah.
We talk about people's whole self, whether it's their physical well-being or their mental health. It reminded me of the first year of the pandemic. I was invited to a legislative briefing of Dakota County officials. I have the northern part of Dakota County. And one of the Dakota County staff persons said something very powerful. He said that transit is a social service because it allows people to go to work, go to their health appointments, go to places of recreation. And so we had to see it in that light is a very powerful argument.
Well, I think Tab just reviewed a presentation I think many of you have seen about the Transit on Board survey. And so we see that with ridership retention is a really important part of many people's daily lives. Yes, oh, thank you. Others? Yes?
I was just thinking about, like, it's been mentioned already about the different definitions of prosperity. But I was also thinking that we cannot work towards whatever your own definition of prosperity is without having at least a solid base of services and resources that can then allow you to choose your own path. And we were talking about Star Trek for some reason. And then,
Live long and prosper.
that was it.
Star Trek is really about many different ways. So
Well, what I thought about the space race is that if you don't have a solid launch pad, or a solid launch pad is necessary to reach for the stars. So, I mean, if you are worried about your food and your shelter and your health care, you're never going to then have the energy and the time to, do whatever it is that you want to do. So I think that the bottom line is to have a prosperous and healthy community. We have to guarantee at least a base of economic and health services that cannot be taken away. Because once you don't have to worry about those very basic things, then you're free to reach for the stars.
Right, thank you. It's very powerful. If we can leave it there.
Very inspirational note, leave it one.
Yeah, no, that's a very inspirational note. So, I want to encourage, if you haven't taken the survey that I sent you and would like to, I'll leave that open. And again, I will be collecting all of this information. Again, we will be summarizing and synthesizing the input that you get from, the input that we've received from you, as well as all of the input that we're receiving from other groups. And we'll start to create things for you, more things for you to discuss and to respond to. I would like to hear how you thought this went today, and kind of how you'd like to be engaged in the future. That would be helpful for us as we plan next steps for this process. So, any thoughts? Otherwise,
Thank you. Thank you all for your time.
and
If you wanted to have any closing remarks?
yeah.
Thank you, Michael, thank
Oh,
you,
you're
Lisa,
welcome.
thank you, everybody. That was really amazing, and I
Oh,
think
glad
we
to hear it.
really appreciate the opportunity to actually talk kind of generally again about some of these issues and themes that are so important to all of us. So thank you again very much, and thank you all for participating in this. I have read the law, and we cannot